The P320-Flux Legion. Is this a total waste of money or a very fun business expense? Look at that. So you might have seen this around, and the reason why I was interested in making a video on this specific product is that this is New Jersey legal. So for people living in New Jersey, you really can get a lot of very cool stuff, but for some reason, this was legal. Why was it legal? It doesn't make any sense, but I'll try to explain it to you. New Jersey has weight restrictions on how heavy something is able to be in order to be classified as a pistol, as a rifle, and whatever. I'm sure this makes a lot of sense, and it definitely should because it makes a lot of sense. This is similar to like drone flying, how suddenly 251 grams makes this a very dangerous drone versus 250 grams doesn't need to be registered by the FAA. Thank you to those who understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so what is this system? This system is very creative because SIG, I think, was really the company that revolutionized the idea of having a serialized trigger system, which is now able to just be taken and put into different places to make it used in multiple different ways. So this is using the 320 trigger FCU, so fire control unit, that is now dropped into somewhat of a chassis that now makes up what this is. Now this has a lot of other features on it that's not really from factory, but it gives you an idea of how this is able to be built out very practically. Now, this could be kind of looked at as like the 80s SWAT teams where they were running around with MP5s. This is kind of like the modernized version of that. This is using a 9mm barrel. It's a 9mm system, but again, it's a lot of very feature-rich items that's able to now get collapsed into a very, very, very small kind of platform, which is very easy to put back. Look how easy that was to put back. Now, there's a few things with the ergonomics or like the kind of way this is able to run that might be worth considering if it's something you want to be able to use. So there's some learning curve to get very comfortable with this system, but it's still something that's very cool. So starting from the front and moving back, this one again, these are things that are not necessarily, they're not from factory, but you're able to just kind of show you what they're able to come with. So the Strike Industries, this is kind of like a forward mitigating device, which kind of allows the gases and stuff to go forward. You are able to put a compensator on the front of this as well. It's actually cut out in a way on the front where you could add something a little bit more like forward if you want to use a comp. But I think more so it was designed for suppressor use. So there is kind of like an indentation on the bottom. So if you have like a wider baffled suppressor, it won't get in the way of the firing of the firearm. Now on the top, this is the Steiner D-ball, which again, if you're going to use this under night vision, this is something that can be kind of low shouldered and still be able to be fired. Very light recoiling because it's 9mm and you have more points of contact in order to be able to use it. So I think that's great as well. Now on the opposite side, you can see that there is the Arasaka light mount. It's like the light body with the Mod Light actual light head and a Surefire tail cap, which is the clicky tail cap, which allows you to activate the light just like that if that's something you wanted to do. The cool thing about the Steiner D-ball is that it's top activated with the pressure button right over there. So again, this is still something that you're able to run very comfortably with this way that we're able to work. Not from factory, but what you're able to get is almost this hood that's right on the inside over there. And this hood is what allows the Arasaka light body to connect to the actual hood of the product. And then again, giving you more rail space on top to be able to add the Steiner D-ball or any other accessories that you might want. Now with that, you're going to actually have to use a slightly higher rise optic in order to be able to see over all of that. So right now, this is the Aimpoint Acro. And then on top, below that is going to be the ScalarWorks riser, which is a kind of a quick detach riser that I have on some of my rifles, and they work very nicely, and I do enjoy that there. As you can imagine, this is no longer going to be able to use the iron sights. That's completely irrelevant. So a secondary optic of some kind is mandatory in order for this to be able to function correctly. And then kind of like the big reveal feature, the reason why this is so cool is on the right-hand side of the firearm, there's going to be a latch that you're able to push down, and that launches out the brace of this to be able to use as a brace. Right? And then pushing down that same lever, you're able to then like smack it back in place. It does take a little bit of tension to really push it in there, but it needs that tension to be able to automatically lock on full extension. A question I had for myself, I don't know if you had this question, but was if there is any impeding of the launch out, will it no longer allow to kind of like click all the way out? This is kind of like those automatic knives that if like it hits something on the way out, it suddenly gets floppy and not usable, right? So if I were to put my arm right over here and it stops, it does become floppy and unusable, and you actually need to make sure that it has a full length area to be able to expand, to be able to actually be used properly. I do know this is a concern for some people as well, because if you have it kind of like at a low ready position, you're actually getting ready to use it. If it whacks your shoulder or anything on the way out, then again, it won't be able to function until you could pull it out to make sure that it actually gets to the full extension that it needs. So that's something that I think is very important to mention, because you want to make sure that it would be able to activate properly each time. Now here's where the fire controls get a bit interesting. It kind of has some features of a pistol, it kind of has some proprietary features, and has some features of a rifle as well. On the rifle side, it does use a very similar safety selector, similar to an AR-15, so it's kind of in a familiar place to be able to actually use that selector. On the pistol side, it's a button that's, again, similar to kind of like an AR-15 actually, where you're able to push it down like an AR-15 and drop it. But what gets me confused is that since this is in front and you're using it like a grip and you're using it like a rifle, there's kind of like your expectancy that this magazine is going to fall out, but you have to get into the habit of remembering that this is ultimately what's going to be falling out, because it's separate. This is going to be an area where you're able to use a spare magazine, while this one is actually, since it's being used like a pistol, where it actually is the magazine. So this button right over here, you push that button out, the magazine comes out, cool. If you want to reload to this one, this is where it's kind of somewhat proprietary, is that there's a separate lever on the inside portion of the grip where you push it forward, and that allows you to pull that magazine out to then be able to load it into the grip of the gun. So again, kind of mixing between pistol, rifle, and proprietary. This is where I think you should get a lot of practice, because I could see how it could get confusing if you mix up between the basic controls of this system. One interesting feature that could actually add to the value of the way the system plays out is if you do know that you're out of ammunition, the way that they designed it is that this inner button that we just mentioned that is able to release the front magazine for the reload, actually when it's depressed, removes this rear magazine as well. So they kind of designed it in a way that if you want to get really fast with it, I can just push this front button, you'll see the other magazine drop out. So two things happened at once, where I was able to release the front portion of the magazine and then reload to the rear portion of the magazine. So that does work very well. Again, it does come down to training, because you want to make sure that if you're going to do kind of like a tactical reload as opposed to an emergency reload, you don't want to accidentally drop your magazine that might have more ammunition in it. But that still, I think, is a very creative feature that they added into this system. This system is very fun to shoot. Something I do wish is that it does seem like there's a little bit of space on the rails where they could have made this brace just slightly longer, that I think would be a little bit more comfortable, because I feel like I'm really curling my body in to get a good, purchase on the actual gun. Does it function? Absolutely. It just would be nice if maybe there was just a little bit more length for the brace to be able to be used. But other than that, I think it still functions great. It does have QD slots on the back portion of the brace, so if you want to be able to run a sling, you'll be able to do that as well, and that doesn't get into the way of the actual mechanics of the firearm. And then besides for on the brace portion of where the QD slot is, there's also on the body of the chassis, so again, you could kind of run it as a 2-point system or a single point sling, depending on your preference. So I think this is a very cool gun. I think this would be fantastic for home defense, because it's able to be very compact. You're able to get more points of contact to be able to use it similar to a rifle for recoil mitigation. It's a 9mm, which means you can still run this really fast. You can still use your defensive ammo that you might be very familiar with. You're able to run it with an optic, which makes it just everything go a little bit smoother. And this might be something that's very interesting to check out. If you have any questions on this, if you want to see any testing on this, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. This is Raziel Cohen with the tacticalrabbi.com. Thank you for watching.